Hey, you guys. This is Irene, and I have Nylah Says with me today, and I'm very excited because for a long time, I know I've been teasing you guys. I've been having that I was going to interview her up on the page over so that we could have a discussion of Black femininity versus white femininity. And she mentioned this one time, and I was like, there's a difference, just showing my ignorance. So I asked her if she would be willing to come on and just expound upon that because I think it's something, I think a lot of times we internalize behaviors and ideas about how sexual relations work and how women ought to be from our examples of white people, right? Because we live in a Western society and European culture, and their ideals are what are dominant here. So be sure as you're coming in the room, because I know you guys didn't have tons of notice on this, please make sure that as you're coming in the room, you are clicking the like button so that other people can see that we are live. And I'm going to go ahead and let Nylah get into her explanation of this. I'll be asking some questions as we go, and then possibly if you guys have some questions, we'll have time to ask her a few before the end of this interview. Anyway, hey Nylah, you want to go ahead and just jump into it?
Sure. How you guys doing? And thanks for having me, Irene. So when we talk about white femininity versus Black femininity, a lot of people do think, well, male is male, female is female. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Male is male, female is female, femininity versus masculinity has nothing to do with it. It's something that is not, it doesn't have much to do with race. But if we think about our different cultures and just the common behaviors amongst Black people and white people, they are actually different on a lot of issues. And as you were saying when we first came on, a lot of our perspectives about behavior patterns are highly incumbent upon European culture and what they've pressed upon us, right? So when we think of femininity, a lot of people will say, well, yes, soft, subtle, not strong, because some of the things that we hear when we talk about it, like women are not supposed to be strong and Black women are always trying to be strong. And so we do have this thing where strength is seen as a masculine trait. But I don't think that people understand that there are different degrees and different levels of strength, and all women display strengths. Now, the difference between the way white women display their strength and the way Black women display their strengths are starkly different. White women, their femininity is the opposite of what their men are, right? And prior to us coming here, our femininity was basically the opposite of what our men are as far as their masculine attributes. So when we think of white masculinity in this country, we think about extreme dominance. We think of conquering, but not in the general natural sense, because it is the nature of men to conquer, right? But when we think about what white males have did throughout every land that they've ever touched, they not just conquer to acquire, but they also conquer to destroy and, to take over. And there's a lot of thievery and stealing with that. So white women have the opposite attributes of their men. When we think about the relationships that they have with men, when we're talking with Black men, they'll say, when they're making the comparative analysis, they say stuff like, oh, white women know how to talk to their men better. White women don't say that they're strong. They say stuff like white women are softer, white women act more ladylike, and black women act like men. And if we go back into history and we think about who we learn femininity from, we learn it from what, like our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, and stuff like that. Um, and think about them being in slavery. We'll start there because that was, what shaped a lot of our culture and how we deal with each other, right? So the black women, in slavery definitely, weren't allowed to necessarily, smell nice, be pretty, be cared for a certain way, be graceful, in the way that the European woman was graceful. So when black men would look at their women, they would see a woman next to them that could get beat and whipped just like they could. A woman that was working in the field as long as they would work in the field day in and day out. Women that would become pregnant, have a baby, and have to keep working and keep going and not have a choice about it. But then when they would look at white women, they would have nurses and maids, and they were allowed to lay in the bed and rest and be taken care of when having a baby. They didn't have to be out in the sun for long amounts of time. They had someone carrying an umbrella for them, or they were shaded and covered from the elements. And so when you look at that and you see a woman that doesn't have the protection from the natural elements, that has to work and and bear things like their men did, when our men back then would look at a white woman and see something clean and fresh and smelling good and kempt and soft spoken, she doesn't have a care or worry in the world, and then they look back at their own woman and her hands are calloused, and she's probably more muscular because she's worked just as hard as he has. She is physically stronger because she doesn't have a choice but to be physically stronger. She stronger than the woman, than her female counterpart, being the white woman. Not necessarily complaining about being out in the sun or having to do what they have to do, just evolving with what came along with the life. But with white women, when they're faced with similar things, and I guess I should move up a little bit. I just wanted to set the tone for who taught us, where we, the differences between, them during that space. And then as they progress a little bit more and people were, eventually freed from slavery and were allowed to be a little bit more free and move about into the society, the picture of what a man's role was and a woman's role still was there. And what ideally a woman should be like, representative of that was a white woman. So you take your woman that has whips on her back like you do, that has been experimented on without pain meds and, just allowed to, be treated like an animal. And you take her and you put her up against a woman that has been sheltered, that does not have to work as hard, does not, gets treated like a lady, that's protected, like that knows when she walks down, the street that she has to be respected. But that same black woman can walk down that street and be called a nigger bitch, or be raped and not allowed to, say anything, not allowed to cry about it and having to just move on. When you think about those women, let's say 30, 40 years off the plantation, they were raised by women that had those experiences. And so those women are going to impart in them how to move about in the society. So they're not going to get the version of femininity that white women were allowed, but society is going to tell them that that's what's feminine, but their experiences are what their experiences are. So they're going to move about based on what they've experienced. But life and everything around them is going to tell them this is your behavior. When we think about Black women being in the position that they've been, just having to be the counterpart to Black men, men who had to go through those eras watching their women be handled the way that they were handled, and not having the power to do anything about it. When, these men had to watch their children be ripped apart from, the family, and sometimes their wives be sold, and having to not, and just basically having to deal with it and move on, and having the understanding that that's just what life was. And then, time progressed, and then there's more freedoms or whatever, but they still have, the stuff that happened after Reconstruction. They still have Jim Crow. They still are Black under this system, and still in a subjugated and oppressed sort of position. So being in that position and maintaining, what, we're looking at, they're still maintaining who they are as men and being respected as men in the community, but they're also, it's obvious within the family dynamic that there's a difference between what goes on in society with white males and with Black males, right? And with the fact that, like, this even happened in my own family, with when a lynching happens and, the father is gone, or when, racism or the system just decides to not deal justly with them, and they come down, they come home to the family, and the family has to deal with it. Black women were not in the same position as white women. Black women have always had to chalk it up and keep moving. So when our men face hardships and stuff like that, our women have to be resilient. They have to be cunning and be wise and be resourceful to their men. So we have to be a help. We have to be a resource. White women are allowed to be a damsel in distress. They're allowed to be weak. Their men's masculinity is highly incumbent upon them not being able to do much for themselves, because that is the kind of dominance that white males have always had over their women. I mean, we're talking about men who brought slaves in the house where their wives slept, and and had children with them, and the women had to keep quiet and not say anything about it. So they've always, had to they've always had a twisted sort of dominance over their women, and so their women always basically had to be hush hush and weak, and it built an enmity between them two, the white man and the white woman, that a lot of people don't recognize, which shaped her femininity, which made her into the type of person that she is. So while she knew that most of everything in her life that she got dependent on, what her man had and all that kind of stuff, she also knew that she didn't have power, like real power to change or do anything. So they're much more deceptive. They do things like weaponize their tears. Black women could never weaponize their tears because Black women were not allowed to use tears. We didn't have time to cry. We just had to keep on moving. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to do, in the conversation is just kind of lay the groundwork for the different lifestyles of the different women. And then if we go back even further into history, our women were always a help and a counterpart for our men. And our femininity was just our attributes as women, what we had to bring to the table, our resilience, our willingness to help, our willingness to be resourceful and to be a benefit to our men. It was never something that was predicated upon us being weak. Our men, prior to the colonial type of mindset or the colonized mindset, we didn't have to shrink or be lesser beings so that our men could be, masculine or feel masculine or, stand tall. Our men stood tall on their own merit. And we were allowed to be who we were in our own merit. There was no competition. What men were is just whatever they were. And they existed as men in their own right, had nothing to do with whether or not we were, physically weak or physically strong. They weren't challenged by what we are as people. But white men are only strong if they're in a dominating position or an oppressive type of position. So I said all that to say that we, being resilient, being resourceful, when our husbands can come home and say, hey, I got laid off today, or the government shutdown happened, so I'm not, I'm a government employee, I'm not going to get paid for 3 months. A Black woman is going to say, okay, maybe I'll go, and I'm just talking from a modern standpoint. I'm going to go do a couple of sew-ins on the side and make some money, or I'm going to go and babysit and make some money, or I'll go pick up a part-time job, or I'll go do this and make some extra money to help. And maybe we'll cut back and do this and clip some coupons and do this. Where white women, they're not a resource for their men like that, for a lot of the times. I mean, they're evolving, now, because the times are changing, where men are, being having their masculinity challenged more and more by, this liberal type of thing that's going on. But pretty much they would allow their men to fail and to fold, because challenging or being a resource or being someone that could sustain the family challenged their men's masculinity. So they had to be the damsel in distress. So their men being strong and being the knight in shining armor only existed if he could control all things around it. And if, he was always the breadwinner. Our men's masculinity isn't incumbent upon them always being the breadwinner.
Can I ask you something? So,
Sure.
do you think that, given what you were saying, like how the development of Black femininity has unfolded itself over time because of the unique struggles and position that the women were put in, so it required them to be a different kind of woman, right? Do you think that the expectation from some of our men, that they are getting a white femininity from their woman, do you think that's why sometimes it's frustrating for them when Black women are independent in their behavior or accomplished in certain areas? Do you think that's why they're having a hard time dealing with it? Is that just as some Black women have misinterpreted Black female femininity, some Black men have the expectation of white female femininity from their women?
Well, yeah, because I mean, we're all, still we're still here under, Western society. So when whether or not we want to admit it, when we're looking at examples for things, we're looking at them, or a lot of us are. So if you think about the stuff that they complain about, Black women saying that they're strong. And I do get that there is a talking point when there is a woman that'll say, I'm strong, independent, I can do it by myself. That's, that's speaking out of ignorance, but it's also speaking out of pain that nobody wants to address either. But a lot, the thing is, when they're saying they're strong, it doesn't, every woman that says she's strong, she's not saying I'm strong and I don't need a man, or I'm tough so I can beat your ass. She's saying that I'm not going to falter if the road gets rocky. I'll, maybe I will develop a callus on my hand, but I'm developing that callus that you will probably perceive as masculine, because I'm resilient, because I am strong enough to survive the waves, to go through the fire. You think about, white men have the highest rates of suicide. And most of their suicide is literally the opposite of why a Black man would be struggling, around the same age. So a Black man will be struggling, and this is just from talking to and being around Black men, because I don't speak for Black or white men. I listen to them. So when I'm giving my perspective, I'm giving my perspective based on what men have told me and shared. So Black men are struggling with um, the system, and fitting in on and making their own way while trying to navigate through this system. White men, you know understand their dominance here, as far as I'm white and I'm a male, you know what I'm saying? But what they have problems reconciling is still coming up short, being white and male. And so a lot of times, from what I'm understanding, they're killing themselves if they can't perform what society says white men are supposed to be doing. If they can't be the ultimate breadwinner, if they end up in foreclosure, if they end up getting their cars repossessed, if they, if a business deal goes wrong, if they fail, if they get fired, white men kill themselves over stuff like that, right? Black men typically don't. Black men, depending on their marital status or relationship statuses, Black men will figure the shit out. Or, if he has that Black woman at home, together they have a team. So most of us are not going to let our man fail. Tell a white woman, and this is what I've heard and seen from white men. Tell a white woman that our house is in foreclosure, or I got laid off today, or I can't pay, I can't pay for this, or I can't do that. She's going to fold. She has nothing. She can't operate under pressure. She can't be a resource for her man. Because her femininity is incumbent upon him doing it all by himself. They're not, which is why a lot of white men are frustrated, and why that whole some of that, MGTOW and all that kind of stuff, they, kind of got into, because they don't necessarily believe that they have to help their men, that they have to be a support, system to their men, that it's a partnership. And sure, I do believe in the dominance of the man in the relationship dynamic, but there's also a partnership there. And there is, we should be able to sustain our relationships and our families in the event of an emergency with our man. Like, I mean, I don't think I'm going too far if I say, if something happened where you had to make a decision because something happened with your man and he couldn't do it right now, or there was some crisis, I'm sure that, being a Black woman, he is either equipped you, or you came equipped, or you're cunning enough in the right ways to figure out something until he could make the final decision, or do whatever needs to be done. You would be able to sustain it. You would be able to sustain the house. You would be able to sustain the business. A lot of times white women can't do that. And so that causes their men to have these breakdowns. That's why they're killing themselves, because they have that thing where they know I mean, they're white and they're males. So they should, by all intents and purposes, they should be able to do it all. And when they can't, and they go home, they can't tell their wife and kids that they're losing the car and they're losing the business. But a Black man can come home and say, hey, I got fired. We're going to come into some tough times in a couple of months. We're going to figure that stuff out. We're not, typically, if you're a healthy woman, you're going to figure out some way, even if it's just clipping coupons. You're going to find a way to not put, constraints on his purse, and to be a resource instead of just instead of just a liability within the relationship.
So, do you think that there's any credence to the idea that Black women are masculine. So what is the line? Do you know what I mean between the expression of Black femininity and um, masculine behavior, if there is any line?
I think that there is some credence to women in general in Western society becoming more masculine. Just like I do believe that there's some credence to the men becoming more feminine. Um, Men, like, I like to hear, some of the guys that are anti-women when they talk about, well, women don't have anything to do anymore and they can't justify like a stay-at-home wife or mom because they are like, um, we don't have to do laundry on our hands anymore. Everybody has a dishwasher. You don't have to do this, everything is automated. So, even with cooking, you can go to the grocery store and everything is prepackaged. You don't even have to cut up your vegetables. You can just grab a package and the pot roast and the carrots and the potatoes and everything is cut up and you grab it in the oven. So they're looking at it as, well, I don't really need women because, and I hear these men saying that, I don't need women because everything is ready and I can call a maid and I can do this. Well, society has also changed where everything that was once manual is now automated too. So men aren't doing those things that a lot of men aren't anymore doing those things that exercises masculinity anymore. Most of them aren't outside playing football or chopping wood or a lot of guys don't even cut their own grass anymore. They're not doing that much physical stuff. A lot of men are doing like office jobs. They're in call centers just like women are. They're doing and competing within the same realms and jobs as women. And, and women are doing the same thing that men are doing. Like women are now in, doing bricklaying and doing the same thing, same things that men are doing or whatever. So you can't really help it. The way that society is going, it is making everything so automated that the gender roles are becoming a little bit more blurred. Like I literally hear men. I was talking to this guy on Facebook a little while ago, and he said to me, "What do I need a woman for? I can order Uber Eats. I can get a maid online to clean my house. I can do this." And he didn't realize that I was baiting him. And I have a bad habit of doing this. I'll let you talk yourself into a hole with me, just to expose to yourself how retarded you sound. And so he went on with how he didn't need anything, how he did everything himself and all this kind of stuff. I said, so you're just a strong, independent man and you don't need a woman. You don't need a woman's help. Kind of like they use that as a weapon against women. You're strong and independent. You don't need a man. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, so you're just completely independent. You don't need a woman. And he was like, no, what do I need a woman for? But this was the same guy that is angry when women say it. And I don't agree with either party saying it. But I also think that it's sad because this is where society has pushed us for a reason, to not need each other, to be more selfish, to have this sort of mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Well, then that begs the question, right? Well, it doesn't literally beg the question, but I'll use it inappropriately like we always do. um, that makes me want to ask you, then in this new age, right? Because there are traditional things that women have done, and I know you enjoy doing some of them, like you do canning,
Mm-hmm.
you cook, stuff like that. Um, I I sew clothing. I like to do traditional things too, but there's really no need, right, to engage in any of those behaviors. Um, and like you were saying, the inverse is the same for our men. Then, what, in your opinion, is like what does femininity? What can that look like now for the Black woman? And I would even ask, if you feel you can answer it, what does that look like for the Black man? Because the work that we would do and the expectations we would have of each other A lot of those things, and I've heard men say that too, like you can hire a maid, you can do this, you can do that. All you need a woman for is sex. So then now I feel like women are being reduced down to just their vaginas.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
that even that's going away. Even the reduction of women down to vaginas, because they've covered that completely. Because now we have the dolls, so it's a complete erasure of women, and I think that it is a byproduct of the twisted wave of feminism. A lot of people don't know the stages of the feminist movement, and that there were even parts of that was very necessary. White women really needed to get some fairness and human equality from their men. And a lot of people, when we talk about feminism and that movement, we talk about the alternative. Kind of like when we're talking politics, we talk about conservatives and liberals, or Democrats and Republicans, and a lot of people understand that there's an alt right, but they don't realize that there's also an alt left. So, but when we're talking about feminism, people talk about what I would call the alt of it. And the alt would be that wave that is in competition and at odds with masculinity and at odds with men. We don't need to be that way.
so do you feel like there is uh okay, so if we're not doing the other things, um what is femininity looking like, and what role do you feel the Black woman is playing now in the life of the Black man?
So I think what femininity would look like in 2019 would literally just be an evolution of what it looked at, back then. We are still in support of our men. We still work. Like in my house, um, I'm definitely not without power. I'm definitely, allowed to, it's an understanding that I can make a decision. I wouldn't be a part of this man's life if I wasn't a benefit to him. And while he's definitely the breadwinner, and he's, and I stay home and all of that, like I do have an MBA. I am a CPA. I am reasonably intelligent. I am, what he does know is if something happened, if he, for whatever it is that he can't see, I can forecast. So femininity today would be a complement to masculinity. So what I am is constantly trying to pursue being the yin to his yang. Um, Constantly trying, like, and here's the thing. I have an understanding just, from being around what he goes through to a certain degree outside. So at home, I want it to be refuge for him. I want it to be peace. So at home, I'm trying to make it light. I'm trying to, like, I want him to want to come home every day. I want him to, if he's not sure about something, I want him to know that I'm intelligent enough to be relied upon. I want him, I think that the balancing act is to not necessarily challenge their manhood or their masculinity, but sometimes you have to, challenge the understanding. You have to, because that's the thing, like I do challenge him, but I challenge him in a way that doesn't impede or doesn't disrespect him, if you know what I'm saying. And I think that it's our job to challenge them, but not in a way that is disrespectful or in a way that is imposing. When I say I provide a challenge, I mean I'm challenging him to be better and challenging myself to be better and being just vigilant of, of what's going on, our finances, um, retirement, what's going on around us. I'm literally like for everything that he does, because like he does a lot, he does everything for me. He supports me in just about every way. So for everything that he supports me in, I'm looking for what I can support him in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think too, we forget, I I personally, it concerns me that people think of each other in a ultra utilitarian way, like you can replace an intimate relationship with another human being with dishwashers or step stools or a maid or a handyman, right? Um,
Mhm.
and we forget that there is like a spiritual aspect, and there's love, and then there's companionship of someone who genuinely cares about you. And the rest of the stuff is just stuff we do to survive, right? But the survival aspect of relationships isn't why you get into a relationship, right? It's a benefit to have somebody
Mhm.
help you survive and navigate the world.
Mhm.
But we get into relationships for the other human being, right? For the
Mhm.
relationship that we have with them and the companionship we have with them and the love and emotions we have toward them. So, um, looking outside of our capabilities, what would you say femininity looks like when you're supporting your man purely on like an emotional, spiritual level, when you're catering to that human side of him?
You have to be vigilant and mature enough to know how to nurture without mothering. So it's definitely a balancing act, especially if you raise children, or you have like I have a mothering spirit, so I have to be careful. And not to say that some of that doesn't come out and that you don't think about that and that doesn't play out in your relationship. Like there is sometimes where you have to be like, if they're down or down, spiritually or even physically or whatever, you're going to take on that nurturing role. But you have to be careful that you do it in a way, and there is an art to it. Um, you have to do it in a way that does not impose on him, um and that doesn't that isn't authoritative, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. Um, what does it feel like, or can you describe for some women? Because, like, truthfully, some of our women have not been able to rest safely in the feminine, right?
Hmm.
What would you say to women as far as what that experience is like what that feels like to be able to rest in the feminine with a strong male leadership? And can you also explain like when that's a safe space to be, right? Because you can't do that with every man. So could you do both, explain what the experience is like and then explain like what you personally have looked for to know that it's a safe space to do that?
Okay. I think, okay, so just repeat that one more time.
So I wanted you to explain what it is like to be able to rest in your femininity, because women can be feminine, right? But if they don't have strong male support and leadership, that femininity is going to look different, right? Because they're essentially doing the protecting and a lot of that work that a man would be able to do for them for themselves.
Hmm.
And so a lot of our women spend a great part of their life like that, and so they don't feel comfortable um, in resting in the feminine, and part of resting in the feminine is submission, right? Um,
Yeah.
so can you explain what it feels like to be in a comfortable place where you are resting in your feminine? Um, like, if is there, how does that feel, right, to you? And then the second part of the question was, how does a woman know? Because some of our women don't know when to let their guard down.
Mhm.
What are some signs for you personally that let you know that the man that you're dealing with, this is a safe place where I can let more of my feminine energy shine through it and leave more of the masculine things that I've picked up to this man?
Okay, so there is some. This part is a little bit difficult for me to explain because I've never had the experience of the I don't feel safe, I don't feel protective, I can't. Um, I can't necessarily identify with some of that. But here's what I can tell you. There is something very natural. It's just like, how we navigate through these YouTube spaces, right? There are times, and we talk with different types of men all the time. And even in life, you go through life or whatever, and because I've done business, had businesses all my life, and had to do businesses, with men and work with different type of men and stuff like that. When you're in spaces with men that you can feel safe with, I can't really explain it. You just have to experience this. It's something biological. And when you're in the presence of a man, like those men, they they require that respect naturally. You submit that respect to them naturally. That type when they enter the room, when they speak, they move differently. And a lot of men, they get on social media, and I hear them say that women are, they can't control women, and women don't respect them, women such and such, and all this kind of stuff. And they don't realize how much control they do have over women. Those men, that man that you can feel safe with, he controls you whether you want to be controlled or not. He controls your temperament. He controls your moods to a certain degree. And I don't mean controlling in a way like you're a child and you're a robot. But if you're in a bad situation and there's a protector there, you're going to gravitate toward the protector. Even without them saying anything, you sense it. It's something very natural. I just think that women need to learn and listen to their instincts. They know that these guys that they're with aren't worthy. They don't feel safe with, can't rest in their femininity with, because they can't respect them. They won't respect them. If you feel like you have to challenge every single thing that he does, it's because you don't feel safe. If you question everywhere that he's leading you, you don't feel safe. If you're worried about every little thing, you don't feel safe. He's not the one, or he just doesn't have what it takes for you. But when you're around that man and you know who he is and you are in tune with who you are as a woman, I just can't explain it. Like, you naturally submit to that. And those things that we were talking about earlier, like, even though we know it's no need to make bread from scratch and no need to do all those things, you want to do that naturally. You want to get up and make him breakfast when he wants it. You want to make his meals. You want to do his laundry. You want to, you know what I'm saying? You naturally want to do those things for that type of man without any force. And you do it unashamedly. You want to serve him. But when you have that man that does not garner that type of thing, and there's no reciprocity, and you don't feel safe, it's hard for you to do that. It's hard for you to cooperate with him. It's hard for you to respect him because you don't trust him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to that. That there is an instinctual thing that you should be looking for too. Can you just circle back around for the people who arrived late and just give a quick synopsis of the difference between Black femininity and white femininity? And if possible, can you end that with what are the dangers of Black women attempting to mimic white femininity, if any?
Okay, white femininity, and I do believe that Black women are starting to mimic it, just as our men are mimicking what white men do. White women and having a trait of being cunning. Being cunning is not bad. What's bad about cunning, what can make being cunning bad, is the intention and the energy behind it. So white women can watch an injustice be done for her benefit. She can, like I said, they watch their men rape women, rape children, and still respected them and had nothing to say about it. It would not sit well with Black women to do that. Black women that are healthy, as long as it's a benefit for them, they will do anything. They have no limits. As long as, they can keep their status, as long as they can, retain their social positioning. They weaponize their tears. They weaponize, their vaginas. They weaponize everything about them, and they are weak. They are not a benefit to their man. They don't try to be. That's why a lot of them, like if you sneak into these groups with these women, and I've done this, they are literally saying, when your man runs out of money, and these are white women, when your man runs out of money, it is time for you to start looking for another one. You know what I'm saying? But with Black women, or let me finish that example first. White men commit suicide at the highest rates, and it's usually for financial reasons. It's usually because they cannot stand the embarrassment of losing a house or losing a business or losing social status or losing wealth. They can't stand that. So they come home to people that don't want to hear that there is no more money, or that they're not going to be able to keep up with the Joneses and save face and, in front of their peers, their social peers. So they would rather kill themselves in the legacy and allow their their people to basically fend for themselves rather than suffer the embarrassment, because give them a life insurance policy or something like that, because they literally kill themselves because of financial reasons. A Black man comes home, either figures it out because we're just resilient people, we've had to be, or he has a woman at home who will say, look, I got you. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Because the one thing that a woman that cares about you, when you propose a problem, even if you don't want her help, you go what? And Irene, you're probably like this too. You go right into let me figure out how to help him mode. Let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
And I do that too much, because sometimes they're not even looking for help. They're just saying, man, this happened. ABC is going on. Well, when I hear my man say something is wrong, or I hear him say something that didn't go the way that he wanted, or something like that, I'm in my mind trying to figure out what's wrong or what I can do. I go right there. You know what I'm saying? Those women don't have those natural instincts like we have. They're not there. They are the damsel in distress. So they need rescuing all the time from everything. And we are more resilient women. If when life happens to us, we figure it out. We develop the calluses and we move on. They fold.
Do you think that then, well, let me go into the second part of the question, which was, what do you think the danger is of, when Black women are embracing white femininity Is there a danger in doing that?
Yeah, it's a danger. Number one, well, it depends on what part of it. So a lot of our women are embracing it from a false perspective. A lot of the women are hearing the complaints of men and hearing the comparisons between um, men and what they're saying about Black women. So they say, white women are softer, white women aren't strong, and all this kind of stuff. And white women, do the weaponized vagina thing, the weaponized tears thing, the I'm weak and needy thing. And so that is to help her man feel like he's a man, because his manhood is not independent. His manhood is incumbent upon being an oppressor, which we have to understand that is the nature of these men. So when we do that, and you're doing this for a Black man, what is he going to do with that? Because if you're doing this for a Black man who has the nature of Black men and the persona of Black men, he's going to look at you as a liability. He's going to look at you as a child. And it will be cute in the moment for you to be the weakling and I need to rescue her. But these men aren't issuing out too many rescue passes. They want something in return. They want they want a fair return on the investment. So you'll just find yourself with men who kind of build up some sort of not hatred, but kind of like, well, what else you got type of thing. And I think that's the mistake the women are going into now. Like they see that, the white women have this thing that they do with their men that works, but their men actually have the resources to allow them to be weak and the damsel in distress and all that kind of stuff. So the average Black man, you can, go there and be with him and pretend to be weak and pretend to be dumb, because we know that whole dumb blonde thing is an act with a lot of those women that they use for their men. So you play dumb blonde with the Black man, and eventually he's gonna call you a dummy. So think about how the Swirl Nation, they are culturing Black women to be with white men. And think about some of the things that they say publicly about how you can't care about social activism when it comes to Black people, and how they teach them how they're supposed to navigate in spaces, how they're supposed to talk, how they're supposed to wear their hair, how they're supposed to do certain things. They are making carbon copies of white women in order to be with white men. Black men don't typically really want exactly what that woman is, and that's not what they need, because they don't have the white male experience.
Do you think that it weakens our men when we engage in femininity that puts them in a position where their manhood is determined by our ability to be weak and helpless?
I think that it is not a benefit for our men to be helpless, especially if we feel like they need to be correcting things within the community and within society and correcting Black male image. Our men have shit to do. So being weak and being needy is not a benefit to a Black man that is on the rise, because he's going to need to be supported. He's going to need, that yang, that other side. He's also going to need a place of refuge. If you are weak and needy to a man that is progressive and that is busy and that is on the move, that is on the move, he's eventually going to be bored with you and going to have to discard you, because then you're just a liability. Ken Reddick, dude, I don't watch TV.
She's watching too much. Okay.
Yeah, I don't watch TV. And I'm pretty sure I have more letters behind my name than you do. So watch it.
All right, so I think that, okay, Father, ask a question if you have one. I asked them if anybody had questions for you, so if you don't mind, maybe we can take a couple if anybody has them. Get your questions out now. Can you hear me? Am I muted? Okay. Get your questions out now, you guys, because I don't want to keep Nylah too long. It's a Sunday morning. It's a weekend. She's got a family. So let's see. Morish, I don't know what you mean. So I can't ask that question because that doesn't make
And
sense.
sometimes he asks weird questions. I don't even like read or some. I don't know what he's talking about.
There's really nothing to question. She hits the nail right on the head. How do you know how white women are in relationships? Okay, that's fair. Joe likes to be controversial sometimes, so he's asking. Oh no, he's not asking you that. Never mind. He's asking Jamaican. CRU, I don't feel that there's really a gender war in real life. Okay, clearly y'all just have questions for each other.
Oh, Mika Baby says, what does Black femininity look like outside of men? It is artistic, it is expressive, it's still resilient, it's everything that it is when they're around. Like, it doesn't exist because of them. We, you know, our femininity stands and rests on its own, just as their masculinity should. You know, Black women are, you know, resourceful. Remember how, like, you hear the conversations about how Big Mama, you know, would make a meal out of nothing. Like, there's nothing in the refrigerator, but she comes out with a with a gourmet meal. Or you don't know how, you know, you guys made it, but she figured it out. Like, we are some of the most resilient, resourceful women, and we can even make bad times look good. Black Caesar says, Nylah, why do some Black women think they can automatically fix Black men when we are in a relationship? I don't think that they can. I would hope that they don't think that they can fix Black men, but I think that when there are things wrong or something happens, I think that it's like an innate thing to want to fix what you think is wrong anyway. When you're a woman, like, you want to fix everything. Kind of, you know, I think that's just a natural woman thing, and I don't even know if that's a just a Black woman thing. I think women just want to fix things. They want things to, you know, flow smoothly.
I'm always muted and I'm just talking away. Why do Black women discuss white women so often?
I don't discuss them. We just happen to have the discussion today.
Yeah, I think today's discussion, just to try to justify your question as if it's a genuine question, is that our identity as Black people is something that we have been, that, you know, think about as descendants of slaves, all our people knew was slavery and the positions that we were allowed to have in slavery, right? In my opinion. And as we come out of that, we are assimilating into a white culture, and with having all of our African culture, for the most part, almost ripped away from us, right? And so a lot of our behaviors have been molded in mimicking and trying to assimilate into whiteness. And so it's good to have these discussions where we make a distinction of what makes us unique and what is ours, and what makes them what they are. And so I don't think there's a harm in having that conversation. It's a conversation other people aren't going to have because we're unique in that history. So I guess it
I
makes
kind
sense
of
for
think
us.
that I partially disagree. Because when we talk about like the cultural thing, when we say that we're not, very close to our, an African culture or African culture, the indigenous, however you want to say, whatever our culture was. I think that we don't want to recognize that there is a culture, that there is a Black culture of, the people that have been here for hundreds of years, that we have evolved. And as well as if we're even talking about African culture, their cultures have evolved. Like they are not doing the same exact customs and speaking the same exact languages. Even, if we're talking about Yoruba or whatever, they're not speaking the same Yoruba. They're not doing the exact same customs as they were 500 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like all of the cultures have evolved and it's probably not even recognizable. We are all, you know, constantly evolving with the times and making evolutionary progress to the point where we're all just having remnants of what our forefathers or our ancestors did. And I think that part of our problem is we don't embrace what our culture is and work on perfecting what it is now.
Do you think we actually work? I mean, now that you said that, it's got me thinking about things like our slang or our various patois that we have, um, the certain way we dress or that we talk. We're very physical with each other. Our greetings are very physical, things like that. Do you think that we actually work very hard to purge those things out of our community? Because a lot of us view them, a lot of us feel that we should actually be kind of a mirror of white American culture.
Yeah, I think that most of us just don't want to admit it. And that most of us would prefer that we be closer to white culture than anything. I think that a lot of us do put white standards on Black people, and that the white standard of anything is seen as the right standard. And we use that as the measuring stick or the litmus stick for everything that we do. But what I
So
find interesting is that a lot of times, like when you travel to different countries and you, especially if you go amongst the natives, you will recognize some of the same things that you see in what people would call ghetto or Black culture. You recognize some of those same things. It's just packaged a little bit different because it's a different culture. But when you're honest, you'll see the same recurring themes in every culture. But I think that it's the agenda to get us to hate anything that we developed or that came from us, or to look at each other as bad, is so thick and deep that most of us will never be able to unpack that. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Hey,
I
lady.
do. Oh, hey, Cynthia. Do you have something to add to this?
I did because I was trying to tap it in the chat room, but I know that of course when we're up here we don't always get to look at the chat room. But um, I think it's interesting to point out when we talk about white female femininity and when you look at Black men requesting it and Black women trying to mimic it. White femininity has always been used as a means of emasculating Black men to take away their masculinity. So ultimately, when you have Black men who are put in a position to where they're in a subjugated position, what they're actually requesting is to have a form of femininity which is based on the white woman, what they perceive the white woman to be, submissive, docile, or whatever, that is not able to match that is able to accommodate their subjugated position in society. Because basically what white women allow Black men to do is get a false sense of manhood and masculinity without actually living up to that without living up to the what it requires. Because if you look at the rate of a lack of success that Black men and white women have in the relationship, of course it indicates a number of different things, but we could also, you know, surmise that it indicates that, number one, white femininity is not what Black men need, and number two, Black men cannot even accommodate white femininity because of their position in society. Because just like Nylah said, you know, Black men don't have the same experience as white men. So they don't have the resources to cater to the type of femininity that white women have, where they can just rest on everything of that man. That's not Black men's situation. And that may be one of the reasons why they have such a high failure rate, because they're chasing this form of femininity that doesn't work for them. That's not your, because that requires, their form of femininity requires that you have some dominance in society. This is why, you know, you see white women who probably don't really even see a lot of masculinity in Black men, which is why she reduces him to his sexuality. That's what I think about the, you know, the whole white femininity, which, by the way, biologically, white women are closer to being men than any other race of women, but whatever.
And that's actually true, and a lot of people don't know that. But that's a good point, because
Oh, Nylah, you cut out.
like about them, they do say.
Wait, Nylah, you have to back up because you cut out.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
The point that she makes about when white women are asked what they like about Black men, it usually, the first couple of things they say, it has something to do with their sexuality. And when you ask Black women, it's something different. Like, I've never led with sexuality when I think about what I enjoy about Black men. The sexuality is there, but it's not the first thing that I think about when I think about them. And I think that's when you come from a genuine, natural, organic place, when you're talking about love, admiration, and appreciation, as a woman in what you like, and a man, sexuality is definitely not going to be the first thing that you think of.
And also, did you notice, Nylah and Irene, how, and I think it kind of goes back to what we were seeing when we discussed that 90-Day Fiance situation. It seems like when white women are in relationships with Black men, their femininity actually means they're dominating that Black man. And that's what white femininity is as it applies to Black men. And they go in these relationships and they end up going in a more subjugated position than they are with Black women. And because I was going to do a review on the reunion, because it was a perfect example of how these men, you know, how the femininity of the white woman is portrayed in terms of Black men, where it is actually a role reversal, and she's more dominant over him. He becomes feminized. So clearly, that's what I mean when I say her white femininity is meant to subtract from the masculinity of the Black male, which is why when we see them in these situations, literally they look feminine. The men begin to look very feminine when they're in these situations with white women.
Yeah. Like, and I've always said that, and men take issue with me, but I'm like, when I say that, but like, if I'm speaking from a woman's perspective, when I see Black men with white women, it's not, I don't envy it. It doesn't make me angry, but that man starts to look like feminine to me. He like is, because I feel like Black men are some of the most masculine men on the planet. But when I see a Black man with a white woman, that masculinity disappears for me. They start to look, I mean, and the example that I always give is, if you imagine the darkest, most sculpted masculine body of a Black man, and him just jet black in all his Black glory, and you put a white woman next to him, some of the glory of that masculinity and his Blackness disappears. So
It softens it.
it
I could agree with
softens
that.
it. And for me, when I see them, when that's why I laugh when they say, oh, you know, when the topic comes up, they say, oh, Black women are just jealous and just hating when they see, and I don't, because like in actuality, when I see mixed couples, the Black man usually looks me dead in the eyes like he's apologizing. Like it's this weird, and I've heard other Black women say that. They look like, I'm sorry I'm with this white hoe. Like, sorry, but that's what they look like. And the white woman like grabs him like he's in danger. It's and it always happens.
Can I ask just two questions that are out of the chat? A real engineer said, I have trouble dating Black women without degrees. They seem to be competing with me. Maybe he means with degrees. I'm not sure. Any tips on what to do in that situation? And then this kind of runs hand in hand with another question that was asked in the chat about how more nerdy men tend to find it easier to date white women. And how, because Black women typically don't want them.
I think that might actually have something to do with what we were just saying.
The lack of masculinity.
Yeah, because like it's like women being attracted to men or being drawn to men is largely biological. It's largely chemical. And like I know that the concept of the nerd not getting the girl is new for some reason now, but that's just the way it's always been. That's why the word was like developed. But the thing is, the nerd usually evolved. Like, you know, we all went to high school with some guy, you know, guys that were not as popular. They weren't as attractive. They may have been socially awkward. And so they didn't really have, you know, a lot of girls beating down their throats. But 10 years later at the high school reunion, he has either showed up with a woman that is very similar to him, or he's outgrown the awkwardness and has like blossomed just like with girls, you know. And that's the other thing. I don't really see the opposite argument made a lot, where the nerdy girl who may be socially awkward and not so attractive, I don't see the argument made, you know, by the unattractive nerdy girl. Black men just want hood rats and harlots and they overlook me because I'm a nerd. I don't see that argument very much. Hello?
I'm just trying to find this clip because I want to see if Irene will let me play it so I can show white femininity in action. Like I really, it's really important to me. But you don't see the same thing, and that's because when you have nerdy Black men, and a lot of these Black men in general who lack masculinity, they're looking for a false sense of it. And I think Frances Cress Welsing talked about that in her book, how by Black men being in relationships with white women, it not only strips them from their manhood, but it prevents them from actually evolving as a man, because what he is doing is he's in a relationship with this woman who's not requiring him to actually be a man or fulfill the role of a man. She doesn't need to. She's attached to the white man who is in that dominant position, but yet he's given the false illusion of it based on his sexuality. And so I think rather than these nerdy dudes leveling up because maybe they just don't know how to, they don't feel like they have what it takes to or whatever, they simply go to a group of women who are going to give them that false sense of it. Basically where they can pretend and play the masculine male characters. It's like reliving this fantasy, but they know that that's not who they are, but they get to pretend like that's who they are with the white woman, because she doesn't really, I mean, white women don't really need anything from Black men except sexuality. They don't possess what they would need to possess in society to cater to her needs. White men do. So
I actually agree that sometimes men with very beta characteristics get on well in relationships with women who are willing to pretend like the man has a dominant role when he's really the submissive. But that feeling of being allowed to play dominant is pleasing to them. But Father did bring up something, and this I thought was an interesting question. He said that society's moving to a place where men don't need the same kind of masculine characteristics. So traditional masculinity is no longer required because you just have to be intelligent. Do you know what I mean? You can be weaker per se. And that if Black women, I think where he was going, still have the expectation of that type of masculinity, are they really working against where society is evolving, where all of the more brute, overt masculinity is no longer required of men? And so are we shooting ourselves in the foot by having that expectation of men?
I think it's poor judgment for a man to assess what type of masculinity is required for a woman, though. I think that even though society may be saying that men don't have to be strong and they don't have to be masculine, and that all that matters is your head strength or whatever, or your intelligence. I mean, women are still going to gravitate towards the natural thing. Like it's biological. It's not something that we can help. And I wanted to address one thing that someone is saying. They were saying that the Black female nerds get with white dudes, they're bed wenches. And that's pretty much the same thing with the Black male nerds. A lot of times too, they get with white women. And nerd just doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, I was a nerd. I just happened to be a cute nerd when I was growing up, but I was definitely a nerd. But like, and there were guys that were like, it doesn't mean I wasn't saying, I was more speaking to the social awkwardness, don't know how to talk to women, don't know how to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Frantonio wants to know if, and this is off topic but on topic, he wants to know that if the prevalence of Black boys being raised by women is contributing to the more effeminate nature we're seeing in some of our men.
I think that what's in nature will manifest naturally most of the time. And I think that a lot of times, because we've used this as a talking point for so long, that most of the onus of the feminization of men, the onus is on women without people paying attention to what's around them. All of society is moving towards a less masculine man. So, and women have been raising boys like forever. There's always been more women than men. When there were wars, depressions, and things like that, like women had to raise the boys, and had to raise the families. They didn't just start. They just started, getting attacked for it when it came down to Black women having to do it. But women raising male children and them being okay is not something that that's not something that's unheard of. And it's just like women have raised them all the time. It's just that when Black women did it, that's when it became an issue. But like, if you think about it, the society as a whole is making weaker men. And so
I think they're interested in making weaker Black men because they don't use the term toxic masculinity when it applies to white men. It doesn't matter what they're doing. I think they want to feminize the Black male and take away from his masculinity so that they can promote white male masculinity, so that it can, because what you said was very true. You said that white man's masculinity stems from his oppressive position in society, and it does. That's the only thing that makes him masculine, is because he's able to assert dominance by way of violence and having a chokehold on the world's resources. So he's able to appear to be masculine in situations where he's really not masculine. Because of course, if you can dominate the men who actually are masculine, then in theory, you must be more dominant than him. Then you must be the most dominant. So I don't even think that they're trying to go toward the more feminine man. I think they're trying to go to more feminized Black men or non-white men. And what's ultimately going to happen is once they've successfully done that, which they nearly have already, because you have Black men running around in floral print shirts, skinny jeans, man purses, and things like this. So they've almost been completely effeminized. What they're going to do is start propping that white male up as the paradigm of male masculinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're creating their narrative of what Black masculinity is. They're creating the narrative that the Don Lemons and the men that are just not very masculine, they're creating them as the the go-to Black male. But what, like we were talking about on your channel, what a lot of people don't understand is when we use this society to attack the women by saying the women are masculine, and then society is saying that Don Lemon is the standard for manhood, they don't realize that by attacking us that way and saying that we're masculine, they're basically saying that there is no male masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're saying that your women are masculine as a Black man, and society is saying that Don Lemon is the standard for Black manhood. You're putting yourself in a pickle.
Mm-hmm. Since there's a bunch of swirlers trolling in the chat room, can we piss them off a little bit with this clip so we can show how white women really treat Black men?
Yeah, go ahead.
And you shouldn't get a copyright strike on this. It hasn't been taken down, but you can let me know. This video has been up for a while, but let me know if they send you that thing where which they shouldn't, where they say you're showing information that doesn't belong to you, then I'll stop sharing it. But they shouldn't, because I think TLC would have had them take this down a long time ago. But
yeah, go ahead.
The only one I was able to find that doesn't have copyright on it. But let's go.
And then you got to deal with the family and the kids. Jay, you were saying it's not enough time.
No, it's not. It's
Why
definitely not enough time because most people take years. Most people take years before they get married. And if I could come to the U.S. without getting married in 9 days to be with Ashley, I would come still. And then whenever we decide that we want to get married, like, we can get married down the line. But I can ask you this question right now: like, if I could come to the U.S. without getting married within 9 days, would you be getting married?
No.
See?
But you should be thankful you had 90 days because it took you 93 to screw up.
Ouch.
Jay, do you have any regrets getting married so young?
I don't have any regret getting married young.
Coming from somebody who's 20 as well, if I wouldn't have a kid, I really never saw myself like settling down for a life.
I never saw myself settling down and getting married. I never saw myself getting married.
But you made that decision to do so. So when you make that decision, you act like a married person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you should have never made it. You don't invite a woman over to my house while I'm bartending at night.
Yeah. Okay. Let's catch everybody up. Just a week after their wedding, Ashley made a surprising discovery about Jay's activities on a dating site, which left her with some big questions about the future of their relationship. Let's take a look at what happened.
Someone was FaceTiming Jay at like midnight. And so I asked him about it and he kept denying it. So I just messaged her. And I was like, why were you calling my husband Jay? And she was like, the Jamaican guy that I met on Tinder. So I honestly think if I didn't catch him, he would have cheated on me. I can't even kick him out of my house. I'm responsible for him for 10 years. The Jamaican dream. Meet a girl and come over to the US. Like, I'm so stupid. Like, the signs were there. I just ignored them. What you was thinking? Why?
It was just a mistake, and I wasn't gonna have no one come over to the house. So
It was a mistake.
But you just married the person who you're supposed to love.
Right. So what happens when you're at your like 7-year itch and you're having trouble? Then what do you do? If this is what you do 3 days after you got married, what do you do when you actually are having troubles in your marriage? Because as far as I was concerned, we weren't having any issues.
Ashley, you felt confident about marrying Jay, even after backing out of 2 other engagements.
Yeah, he's slick. Like, I didn't see that coming. He had me totally fooled that he actually loved me.
So you guys were good.
Yeah, we were good.
So what are you saying? I don't love you right now?
I don't
It
know.
was just a misunderstanding.
That's
And I wish
not
I
a
could go back.
misunderstanding.
I wish I could go
You
back.
don't misunderstand downloading an app and talking to multiple women. That's not a misunderstanding.
Can I talk? It was just a misunderstanding, and I wish I could go back and fix it. I would do anything just to fix it. You get me? I screw up, and I know that I screw up. So don't act like
Don't tell me how to act.
All
Like,
right.
don't even tell me how to act.
All right.
You f***ed up. Take it on the chin. Simple.
All right.
Just don't even try to defend yourself because you sound like an idiot.
I made a mistake, and like this is where I made a mistake. Like when I signed up on the app, a lot of people started messaging me, "Oh, you're beautiful, you're Jamaican," because I said that was Jamaican on it. Oh, blah 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 blah. And the mistake that I made was started typing in back. You get me? Started typing back. Opening the account.
Yeah. The mistake was downloading the app and starting it. That's where the mistake started.
I'm here in the US. I got no friends. Like you're always on your phone doing your own thing.
So getting on a dating website you thought was the greatest way to solve your problems.
Meet friends. I never know that people was gonna message me.
You knew exactly what dinner was. Don't try to sit here and defend yourself. I'm telling you, just stop while you're ahead.
I think, Ashley, the big question is, why are you still with Jay?
I don't have an answer. I guess because I just wasn't comfortable making such a permanent decision. Like if he goes back to Jamaica, he'll never come back here again. And for me, I wasn't prepared to make that decision yet because I was just going through emotions at that time, and you never want to make a decision during that moment. So, and I mean, it's been really rough. I mean, and honestly, I have not filed for Jay's adjustment of status, and I don't plan to anytime soon.
Why not?
Because I'm not going to be responsible for him for 10 years. And I don't even trust him as far as I can throw him. No. I have a life. I have a home. I have a car. I have kids. I'm not willing to risk any of that for someone that doesn't even respect me.
So where do you guys go from here?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer for it.
Do you think he'll always have a tendency to stray?
I mean, he struck very fast.
Jay, do you think that you can be in a monogamous relationship with Ashley?
I know.
That's a good answer. Do you know what monogamous is?
I'm not gonna.
So let me ask you, do you think that you can be in a relationship with Ashley without cheating? Do you think
Of course I can be in a relationship with Ashley without cheating. Like that was just a mistake right there. And
right, but can you move forward and say, I will never, try to make friends with other women, and I am committed to you one-on-one, and I'm not going out and trying to have these relationships with other women?
I understand that, and that's what I'm doing right now. And there is no way I can try to make stuff up to her because she have my phone log. She can go and check who I'm calling or anything. Like she can do that, and she can do that right now and see that.
But I'm not your babysitter. That's not
what
what
I'm saying. That is the only thing I can do to prove to you, right?
Okay.
What else do you want me to do? I'm not. Listen, I'm
There's
not
nothing
working.
You can do. Okay, buying me
what are we
things
gonna
is not
do
going to
from-
make my
Listen.
so stop talking about
All right.
buying things.
All right. So what I'm telling you, she just cut me off from
Because
everything.
I don't want to hear it.
Yo,
I think the best thing is you just own up to the mistake. Instead of trying to defend your position, look, I f***ed up, and just try to work on your trust. And that takes time.
If it takes the rest of your life, even if she's still like this right now and does not trust you at all, don't ever stop giving up if you love her. Stay with her and keep fighting for her. Don't ever
100%.
mess that up again.
got it.
Keep working. That was me.
You know, as I said before, if I could go back and change it, I would, and never messed up. But like, there's nothing I can do now. It's up to her.
I don't really know how someone can come back from this.
All right. Ashley, thank you for opening up with us about this issue. I know this has not been easy for you. We need to take a break. We'll be right back.
Whew. I'm not dealing with this.
Hold on. Now I want you guys to watch what she says while she's backstage. Just like watch what she says.
Coming up.
I helped her do everything she needed. Can you just tell me thank you?
That shouldn't be. What was the long hesitation on you? Makes me don't trust on him. That's it. I'm not dealing with this. I'm just embarrassed. I don't need a whole room of people to make my husband admit when he did something wrong. That shouldn't be. What was the long hesitation when they said about being monogamous?
That I was trying to think what that word meant. But yeah, I'm sorry.
And like, honestly, you should stop trying to make excuses. When he tries to excuse himself, it's almost like he doesn't feel like he did anything wrong, and that's where a huge problem is.
I said, yeah.
Wait, and like, no, you were trying to make excuses under the sun. Every one of them. Like, you knew when you got down on one knee and proposed to me that I had 2 kids, and it's not all fun games, party, vacation. I don't think you're ready for any of this.
You like proposing to me, I thought you were gonna like help me and guide me and, you know, like help me grow to be a better man. I'm willing to put in the work, but whenever I try to express how I'm feeling, like she's just not understanding my point.
You don't take any guidance. Like, you're Jay, you're gonna do what the you want to do, when you want to do it, and that's with that.
Excuse me, I can't even talk to you.
I kind of feel stupid that I'm still with him, honestly. I feel like he should be worshiping the ground I walk in. For his ass to even still be in America, you go through a bad experience, you just start acting like a dumbass then. So I'm not wasting my breath any longer.
Honestly, I feel like I've been owning up the mistake that I made. What more can I do? Like, I can't go back and correct the past.
Look, there's not a drop of masculinity in him at all. He's asking this white woman to help him be a man. While she's talking about he should be worshiping the ground that she walks on and be happy to be in America.
Well, I'll be honest, until she said that, I was like, okay, she's just mad that he's cheating, da da da. But then it came out why she's really mad. It's not just the cheating. It's that she does essentially, and white men like to do this too, going and pulling non-whites out of other countries because they think it essentially gets them like a slave. And and she got him here, and he's attractive, and he wasn't doing what she expected, which was worshiping the ground she walks on. And when she said that, it became clear what the real problem was, is she felt extra offended.
Well,
because,
see, I also think, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no,
I just want to say, I also think that when you're having issues like with your man or whatever, and let's say, even if she didn't do the you should be worshiping the ground I walk on part, right? And everybody on the surface knows that, okay, she's just pissed off because he cheated on her and he had people in her house and all that shit, right? But even if your man does something that's fucked up, if you have decided that you're going to forgive him and you guys are moving past it or whatever, you're in public, you still cannot emasculate him in public.
Right.
Even if he's wrong, right? Even if he's dead ass wrong and you call him knee deep in something that he wasn't supposed to be in, you cannot do that in front of everybody. Like, and if he was masculine, even though he's in the wrong for what he did and she's well within her rights to be angry, a masculine man, even being wrong, would have embarrassed the fuck out of her.
If he was masculine, she would have known better than to, like, I would never have my man that I'm choosing to be with on national television where I'm the only woman sitting on a stage completely emasculating my man, not letting him talk, calling them dumbasses and telling him how stupid he looks. I'm not doing that on national television or in the presence of everybody else. She could have kept that for a private conversation, but she wanted to humiliate and emasculate him in public.
Well, I thought it was interesting that the other man was essentially like, just let her act like that no matter what. Like, if you love her, just let her carry on and treat you like she's going to treat you. Or I just thought that was very interesting too, even though the look of shock on their faces said different.
Mm-hmm. Right. Every one of them, when she first started getting like that, you can tell they were like, okay, well, that's really disrespectful. But then when the black dude said something to contest it, they all said, oh, you should still, basically, you should bow to her, do whatever it takes, regardless of how she's acting. But this is white femininity, though. Because the truth be told, yeah, this is the TV show, but you can already tell this is the theme of black male relationships with white women. And you can tell that just by Donovan's rhetoric, awareness with Chris, and all of the dudes who sit up there and say, oh, I compromise my blackness. I have to assimilate to whiteness to even be with her.
I think the belief that they're lucky to have her, like the women's belief that the men are lucky to have them and that they're some kind of prize, probably contributes to that.
And she's basically saying, even though I'm married to you, because she says she's not going to file for a change of status, that means she's not going to do the filing so he can get a green card and become an American citizen. So she wants him to be a slave and be held hostage to her whim, or else he's either going to get deported from the country. But she's not going to file the paperwork so he can just be a citizen, get a job, and go on about his day, though. Because she wants to be the dominant one in this situation. And the thing of it is that's generally, I will be willing to bet that's how most of these black male white women situations turn out.
Yeah, that's a mess.
And that's what I was saying. She had the right to be mad, but the fact that she made sure she did it on a public platform and said, oh, I'm not going to sacrifice my livelihood for him. I'm not going to take care of him, but I'm also not going to send him back to Jamaica or file for him to get his citizenship in the country, although we're married. I'm not going to do that either.
I feel like this is kind of the thing, though, for people who marry whites to get into the country, is that you know that you're being purchased. Like, because that's their thing. I wasn't aware white women were doing it too. But I mean, that's why they do it, because there's a level of control you have over the person. And he's a full-on human being. So to kind of put him in a position where, you know, it makes the relationship weird, right? Because he doesn't even have the ability to break up with her without being thrown out the country. And she's already expressed, I mean, I don't understand why he should be worshiping the ground she walks on. And I agree with you and Nylah, even in my private home, if my man does something wrong, there's like a limit to the amount of expression I can have about that. Like I can't, like, you know what I mean? Like there's a level of respect I still have to have in engaging that situation, or there's not going to be any engagement. He's not even in a position to speak up for himself. I don't know if that's just because he's that effeminate, or if it's because he knows she has something over his head and he can't afford to upset her.
Well, it's just some things that you just don't do in public anyway.
You're right.
Like just because, like, she has every right to be mad about somebody cheating on her a week after being married, but that was supposed to happen at home.
Well, keep in mind, by the time they get to the review, this is about 6-7 months later. By the time they get to the actual, it's at least 3 to 4 months later. So the thing of it is, in that amount of time, you can determine whether that much is what is something that you need to separate. You can determine that in 4 months. But to wait till you go to this reunion show and to completely, mind you, that's only part of it. She literally spends this entire first part emasculating him.
All right. Voice of reason, you're a genius. Why didn't we think of that?
Why didn't we think of what?
They were saying that he's not representative of a real masculine stand-up man, and that we're too smart to fall for that type of bullshit. Real black men don't date that type of trash. Dude, weak as fuck. So she's a genius.
I don't think anybody, here's the thing, nobody sees black men who date white women as masculine. Nobody. And that's why usually the ones who do become less of a threat to white men.
Oh my God, Little Miss Chocolate said he's a sex slave. Well, it's pretty close to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking is the only reason she probably had, this literally came to my mind. I was like, probably the only reason she hasn't had him deported, you know?
Well, I feel like
for sex, and he's beautiful.
Yeah, he's beautiful and she's probably using him for sex, but also she's had a lot of failed relationships. Like if you watch the show, Cynthia has me looking on YouTube when they put it on YouTube for this show. But like when you watch the show, she's had a lot of failed relationships. So here's the thing. She's obviously a control freak. This heifer could not find a white man that would let her run and control his ass. So she went to Jamaica and got some black woman's child and brought him back to control and be, you know, her little bitch boy.
She's a single mother with 2 whole white kids. Don't
Right.
black men go on a tangent about how you shouldn't date single mothers and all this other stuff?
Well, I've seen that happen a couple of times where they'll date a white woman with some white children.
I've seen them at the zoo with white women and their whole white children tagging behind them, or literally walking around holding the white kid's hand as if it's their own. So they have no problem taking a white woman, sloppy, nasty, fat, with orthopedic shoes on, carrying white kids with her. Yeah, and she got 2 kids by 2 different men. But this is white femininity as it applies to black men, though. Somebody saying anyway, that is not a man, he's a boy. And regardless to whether you pitch it, there's been men on the show significantly older than him, and they're getting slapped around by old haggard white women. They're getting disrespected too. So you can't sit there and say, oh, he's just 20. You got black men in their 30s. Because the African black man, he was 31, and that nasty old haggard white woman was running around slapping him, emasculating him, and treating him like a slave too. And voice of reason for my people, nobody said it applied to you. Like, why do you think that somebody thinks it applies to you? But to outsiders, it applies to you. That's what a lot of people don't understand. To other races of people, one black man represents all black men. I don't know why y'all are not understanding that. Just because you think you're an individual does not mean everybody out in society thinks that you're an individual. When they see one black man engaging in behavior, that one black man is indicative to them of all black men. That's just the reality.
Yeah, I don't think Made Man 281. I don't think Cynthia is generalizing. I think we literally don't want to accept. There's like a section of Black people who want to move about the world as though they're autonomous, and the reality is you're really not. Like, as much as you might want to be, you're really not. And that's just a reality we all have to face. You don't have control over that. Societies, their minds are trained to see Black people as like one big moving being. And so it's not so much a generalization that she's making, like it's factual. And I think people have to just be accepting of that and move about with purpose, right? Because You had some more of that? You're so wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah, but no, she's not generalizing. She's being real. Like, dude, we are all thought of as one big being, which is why it's stupid when we're coming for each other because you look dumb as hell. It's like punching yourself in the face. So we have to start moving like we're seen, which is collectively. It's funny, we're seen collectively, but nobody wants to move collectively with any sense. And this poor guy is a slave to this white woman. He's put himself in that position. He probably thought he could control her because he had a misconception of what it was going to be like and found out when he got here, she was going to be the one in control. You guys know I'm leading off the Sunday Rumble today.
Yeah, I heard. I'm sorry. I have to do one-on-one calls with Patreons today, starting at 4. I hate that I'm gonna miss it.
Oh yeah, it should be interesting. O'Shea likes to make
I
me
saw it was
sacrificial
a
lamb.
topic that we discussed last night.
Yeah, he wants to discuss are mixed kids black. Is the discussion he wants to have. So this should be interesting. I wish I knew the backgrounds of all the people who are on the panel because I know that a lot of them are like swirl. Do you know what I mean?
They do. And the thing is, like, most of us have swirlers in our families, or biracial children somewhere in the family somewhere, or you know, we know people who have done it or who are, like, the false outrage, you know, like the way that they act about this is it's really kind of getting silly. But I guess people are running to talk about, I don't know.
I think the conversation you were talking about, though, that's one that I do want to have. I think that will be useful. I never thought about having that conversation, but yeah. So with that said, y'all, I'll be on the Rumble. Go to O'Shea's channel and you can watch them crucify me because every time I go over there, they try to crucify me.
Well, thank you.
Hopefully how long my calls take. Hopefully I won't. You'll probably be on there for most of the rest of the evening.
Oh my goodness! Because everybody likes to come on the panel once I'm up there because everybody wants to try to have a hand at taking me down.
Well, you know, it's
not as zealous for me as Cynthia.
It's something to be said about you know, exercising your dominance against a woman on YouTube. That's, you know, how you become the man.
Yeah, it should be an interesting discussion. I'm hoping it will be a constructive.
Who's going to be on it?
Wait, no, don't take them out.
Irene, who's going to be on it?
I don't know. I don't know. Why don't you come get on? I don't know.
You know they can't last. You know, if 5 minutes is all it takes of me being on there before somebody starts whining and crying. So I don't think that the O'Shea panels are the place
I want to taste
for me. I think it's probably best that I stay away from.
I think everybody, but this is a topic everybody would have to agree with you on. They would be forced into agreement.
Well, you know,
they all became black just because they wanted to disagree with you.
But I don't want their panties to get in a bunch. I get that sometimes their tampon strings get wedged in between their moist booty cheeks. But at the end of the day, I can't play no part in that. I really can't.
Cynthia, did you get my text message earlier?
No.
I asked you. My sister actually told me to ask you this. She said, "Can you tell me what black men are doing to fight against white sugar, white flour, and white rice? We are being dominated by white food supremacy.
And they're low quality. We need brown sugar, brown rice, and brown flour."
Right, switch to brown was what I would tell them. That's a really simple fix.
I was dying.
No, that is actually funny. You're asking that. It's just like, no, these dudes, I should stay away from all of these panels that involve the dusty beta manosphere because they're just too emotional. And I don't like overly emotional men, and they're gonna stop anytime soon.
She said whenever her and her husband are going at odds about something, she says this is not going to do a damn thing to end white supremacy. She said,
dreads, I use pink Himalayan salt, so you can go do something with yourself. My salt is pink, not white.
Yeah, pink I like the smoked that smoked pink Himalayan sea salt. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, I haven't tried the smoked kind, but I have had I do have some sea salt with charcoal in it. It's infused with edible charcoal, so it's black.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that charcoal is good for your skin and your teeth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I brush my teeth with it.
Does your mouth turn all black?
Yeah, it does, but you can wash it out.
It really whitens your teeth, though. It whitens your teeth as well as I don't know if you've ever used like the turmeric. Well, you mix turmeric with baking soda and coconut oil, and it not only does the coconut oil pulls the toxins out, but the turmeric and the baking soda are whitening agents.
Does it taste nasty like baking soda?
You can put a few drops of mint in it. It's not terrible because it tastes kind of coconutty because of the coconut oil. It's basically that's how you make like homemade toothpaste. But
no, I mean like the charcoal. Does that taste nasty?
It doesn't have a taste. It's just like,
oh yeah, that doesn't have a taste.
Yeah, it just has the texture. But I mix mine with my toothpaste. I have the natural toothpaste, and I mix it with it. And it works really good, actually. Joe said it's going to be an aching coochie, ashy ankle festival over there. You know it is. I'm going to tune in just for the sheer fuckery that I know it's going to be. Because they'll turn it into it. They're going to turn it into that. Because
everybody gets...
I want to see how quickly it takes one of those dusty beta males to say the children who have black fathers are black, but mixed children who have black mothers are not. Because that's an argument that they'll say.
Look, Morris Troll. Nobody up on this panel is mixed. Like you know what? You need to take your ass on somewhere and worship your daddy, Noble Drew Ali. Take that bullshit on somewhere. Like seriously, nobody up here is mixed.
Yeah, you're gonna have them with the whole "you are the seed of your father" argument. I bet you that's the one that they're going to argue.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with genetics on this one.
Right. And they're going to go against it and act stupid and say it is the seed. And it's just going to be as dusty as the comment section on my video where I talked about it. And they say, no, women got the soil. She has the seed and the soil. The seed gets buried in her soil, which is the uterus. So, I mean, but they're going to be dumb. They're just going to. So, I mean...
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who comes on to the panel because everybody that
I have to do my my Patreon live, but I think I'm gonna do that at like 6 o'clock my time when I do it. So I'll probably tune in for a little while. It's 5, or I might do it at 9 or something. People usually like it to be pretty late. So I'm gonna do mine later. Right now I'm too stuffed from eating to really feel like doing anything.
Yeah, I'll be in good spirits during the Sunday Rumble because I'm baking some cookies. So I'm gonna be eating cookies and drinking tea all during the Rumble. So I should be in great spirits. That's what
sounds good.
Meanwhile, thank you, ladies, so much. Nylah, thank you so much for doing this with me. I was looking forward to it. I think people took a lot from it, and I noticed a lot of men in the comment section, they were able to take a lot from it too. Cynthia, thank you so much for contributing as well, because you did bring up a couple perspectives that we had not discussed previously. And thank you to all of you guys in the chat for tuning in and watching with me and Nylah. And
I'm gonna have to watch the playback from the start because I missed part of it. So I'm gonna have to.
Don't
do
say bless your heart, Taylor, because I'm telling you, I always thought that was sweet, but now I've heard that it's not sweet.
I shouldn't have ate so much. Now my stomach feels all tight and weird.
Look, Morris King, I'm Zulu. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not mixed nowhere. There's no recessive genes, and I am 100% Zulu.
Morris, we had an agreement when I gave you your shout out, okay, which was that you were going to behave for this live. So I see you're getting out of order, but that's okay. See, the live is ending, so.
People just want to troll.
Yeah, I know, but he's a sweet troll.
I'm gonna cut Omega red hair.
The level of trolling based on that white woman emasculating that black man, because you know white women are docile and submissive, and they respect and support black men. So, of course, there should never be a case of one actually emasculating a black man on national television.
Omega Dreads need to go to the wall. He be cutting up down there. You know, if you read Omega Dreads and Turf Oka comments in the comment section, you won't ever get mad. Like, they're always cracking me up. I don't know what the hell you're talking about half the time.
You know who's really funny too? Alpha Omega. Sometimes he's really sweet, and sometimes he's really trolling. And I'm like,
right, he's a condescending ass. Yeah, it's like sometimes I don't know how to take him. Sometimes
I'm like, oh, he's cool, and other times I'm like, really, right now?
Right, I'll time him out for like 900 seconds. Sometimes, you know, that's my new thing. When you say dumb shit, I'll just time you out to infinity.
That's so.
But I gotta start making these calls. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Bye, Nylah and Cynthia.
Bye. I'm gonna watch Nyla's Patreon calls and see how many people call up and say dumb stuff.
Okay.
I'm gonna bounce in between, so I'll see.
Okay. All right. Bye, y'all. Bye, Pat, too.